Good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name's Tim Kluk. I'm President and CEO of the Ottawa Hospital Foundation, and we're thrilled to have this opportunity to connect with you virtually and to report back on an issue that's affecting all of us. Over these last few months, we've all been living through challenging times, and despite the difficulties of COVID-19, difficulties they've presented, it's been truly remarkable to see the way our community has come forward to support the Ottawa Hospital. We invited you to join us this afternoon because there's been a significant amount of developments over the last 3 months since the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic. During the early days of the pandemic, there was an immediate desire from our community to support the Ottawa Hospital. We quickly created the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund and worked with hospital leaders to develop a strategy to harness community support. Since that time, an incredible $1.7 million has been generously donated from the Ottawa community and donors from across the country. It's because of our community's generosity that we've been able to act quickly to fast-track innovative COVID-19 research projects. In total, 21 research, care, and innovation projects have been approved for funding. A clear example of how your support is already hard at work, allowing the Ottawa Hospital to battle this virus and to get the answers we so desperately need. This afternoon, we're going to give you an opportunity to hear from 3 leading researchers who are on the front line. They'll bring to you the latest information about how they're working against the clock to get more answers to COVID-19, and you'll get some great insight into what the future holds. So to kick things off, I'd like to welcome Dr. Duncan Stewart, Executive Vice President of Research at the Ottawa Hospital.
Thanks, Tim. I hope you can all hear me. Merci. C'est un plaisir de participer dans cet événement avec vous. It's wonderful to be part of this event and share with you some of the exciting and innovative work our researchers have been performing as they rise to the COVID-19 challenge. As I am sure you can imagine, COVID-19 has transformed just about everything we do at the Ottawa Hospital. For the last 3 months, many of our healthcare providers, researchers, and staff have been working nearly around the clock to respond to this pandemic. This is a global fight, and the Ottawa Hospital is playing a key role. Our researchers and clinicians are working with colleagues across the city, the country, and the world to find better ways to prevent, detect, and treat COVID-19. As always, the generous support from our community over many years is a key factor in our success. This has allowed the Ottawa Hospital to develop unique research facilities, technologies, and expertise that we can now rapidly deploy in the fight against COVID-19. In the short time since COVID-19 has appeared in our community, our researchers have initiated more than 50 research projects related to COVID, including 7 clinical trials. As Tim mentioned, 21 research and innovation projects have been supported by the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund at the Ottawa Hospital. This seed funding was a key element in our recent success in attracting large competitive COVID-19 related grants, totaling almost $10 million so far. We are excited this afternoon to give you a glimpse of some of that work, and we are featuring 3 of our most talented researchers, Dr. Jean-Simon Diallo, Karolina L Cow, and Dean Ferguson. But their important work wouldn't be possible without your support. So thank you et merci.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stewart. My name is Jennifer Van Noord. I am Vice President of Philanthropy at the Ottawa Hospital Foundation, and it is my privilege to act as your moderator for today. I want to thank Tim and Dr. Stewart for their remarks and share with you how honored we have been to see this incredible outpouring of support from our community, but also to witness firsthand the Ottawa Hospital's ability to mobilize that support and put it into action right away. We thank you for joining us today and ask for your patience if there are any technical difficulties. This is a new normal for all of us, and this is how we will now present in the weeks, months ahead. And so we thank you so much for joining us. We hope you leave inspired and informed and awfully proud to call Ottawa home. Comme le dit le Dr. Stewart, nous allons maintenant pouvoir écouter 3 de nos chercheurs. I'm going to share with you that we'll hear from Dr. Diallo, Dr. L Cow, and Dr. Ferguson separately. They will share their remarks with us, and then, as promised, we are delighted that we will have a question and answer period, because as we've had the opportunity to speak with so many of our supporters, there are many questions that are being asked. When so many of you RSVP'd, you shared some of those questions with us, and you've got the opportunity during this session to ask those questions in the chat bar on the side of your screen. So we encourage you to do that. And of course, I would be remiss not to say that Dr. Diallo pourra répondre aux questions en français. Please know that we may not get to all of them, but we do commit to getting you an email answer because we know this is one of the most important topics that faces our community right now. And with that, let's begin. Commençons. I am thrilled to introduce Dr. Jean-Simon Diallo, who is a scientist, a senior scientist in our cancer therapeutics program. We're reminded as we speak with our researchers that they are citizens among us, dealing with this pandemic in many of the same ways that we are, missing a haircut, missing a restaurant and meal with family and friends, and yet our researchers have taken on this incredible added burden on our behalf to fight this fight, to tackle COVID-19 from every possible angle and put their own passions on hold. I'd be remiss not to share with you that one of the most joyful experiences I ever saw was Dr. Diallo touring a wonderful group of our donors and sharing not only his passion for science, but this incredible passion for music as well, because he plays and records and writes his own music. But he's put that on hold, and here's why. I'm going to read this. This is what Dr. Diallo and his colleagues have been busy at work doing right now. They have developed a novel biosensor that can identify drugs that block COVID-19, the virus. They are using this to screen hundreds of thousands of chemical compounds to find new therapies for COVID-19. Just astonishing. Dr. Diallo, I wonder if I can invite you on to ask the first of a few of the questions we'd like to know. And again, I would encourage you to unmute because we want to hear every word that you have to say. Here's the first question. Before COVID-19 hit, what was the goal of your research?
Well, my research really focused essentially on developing cancer-fighting viruses in a nutshell. And really, my research involves the identification of barriers towards using those types of therapies in patients to treat cancer. So actually, it turns out that a lot of the same mechanisms that are at play with respect to resistance to viral therapy are also the same barriers that, for example, prevent the efficient production of vaccines, etc. So in many ways, we were kind of well positioned to pivot, if you will, towards COVID-19 research.
And so in that line, then, is that now how you're harnessing your COVID-19 research? Are there specific things that you're doing to harness that research you were already doing?
Absolutely. And so one of the key activities that we were involved in was the screening of molecules, small molecules and drugs to enhance the activity of oncolytic viruses. And so I've spent, the greater part of the last 7 years trying to build that infrastructure in Ottawa. And we've actually succeeded in collaborating with many in Ontario to build one of the largest small molecule libraries, collection, if you will, that we are basically set to offer to researchers to test for a variety of different purposes. And the first purpose at this point is screening for COVID-19 antivirals. We just happen to be working with a great team of researchers and collaborators, including Dr. John Bell's team and Dr. L Cow's team as well. And through the development of this biosensor, it gave us the opportunity to really rapidly test hundreds of thousands of molecules. And so that's what we've embarked on. We've basically repurposed that infrastructure, which we were looking for viral enhancing compounds, towards looking for antiviral compounds. The concepts are very similar, and so we were leveraging that expertise.
So you do make that sound rather easy. It's almost it seems like you've been able to pivot in an extraordinary way, and yet I don't want to take anything away from the monstrous task that you've had at hand. I know you credit Albert Einstein, as one of your early influencers as a boy, so he's quite the dreamer. I'm curious if you're dreaming about the absolute potential of the COVID-19 research that you're doing right now. What could that impact look like for citizens, not only here, but well beyond Ottawa?
Well, that's a great question. I think one of what the pie in the sky looks like is novel antiviral drugs that could basically help treat COVID-19. I mean, I certainly hope that my colleagues, and you'll hear about Karolina L Cow's research soon, but I'm certainly rooting for a vaccine, as we all are, because prevention is the best medicine. But assuming that this coronavirus will stick around, I think antivirals are going to be a key thing in the fight to control the illness and the disease. And so basically my expectation is that we will identify new drugs that can be helpful in this fight, and not only for this coronavirus, but other coronaviruses that may arise. We all remember SARS, very closely related. And so this can happen again. It's happened before. So we want to be prepared next time. We were proverbially caught with our pants down during this crisis, and I think we want to avoid that happening in the future.
Great. Thank you for sharing that and graphically sharing. I know, maybe one final question, and then of course there's many questions I want to ask you at the end on behalf of our guests, but one final question. I know that you've shared that one of your proudest moments in your career was being hired as an associate scientist at the Ottawa Hospital. And so I'm curious, what is it about Ottawa that means that much to you? What is it that we're doing here that is so special in terms of the work you're doing?
Well, it's the team and it's the innovation. Those are the two main factors. The number of stimulating conversations I've had with Dr. L Cow, Dr. Bell, Dr. Auer, and a bunch of different colleagues in a variety of different subjects. I mean, that's what keeps me coming back to Ottawa and to the OHRI in particular, to the Ottawa Hospital. It's just an amazing environment, and having the support from the community to build, research infrastructure that's going to ultimately help them is just an exciting opportunity for me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diallo. You can see that passion that I witnessed a year ago when you did that wonderful tour. And so please know, I think we all feel in such good hands with that enthusiasm and passion for what you're doing. So don't go away, because as I say, we've got a few questions for you at the end too. I am delighted now to introduce your colleague, Dr. Karolina L Cow, who is a scientist in our cancer therapeutics program as well. It's hard to believe, Dr. L Cow, that about 5 years ago, you were the award winner for our Researcher in Training award. And I think, my goodness, how does one train to tackle a virus like COVID-19? But so wonderful that you're so accomplished too. I want to share with everyone what Dr. L Cow and her colleagues have been hard at work on as well. Again, I'll read it so that I get it right. Dr. L Cow and her colleagues have been harnessing their expertise in making cancer-fighting viruses to develop a vaccine against COVID-19. You may have seen this in the news, in fact. And so, Dr. L Cow, I wonder if I could invite you to join us so that I can ask you some questions. And again, just a reminder to unmute so we can hear every word you have to say. And with that, the first question that I would have is, can you share more about the incredible research you were doing before COVID-19?
For sure. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to share with the community and with all of you what we are doing. Before 3 months ago, I think we were very focused on trying to develop new cancer-fighting viruses and trying to modify them in order to make them more cancer-specific and more potent, and building them to really stimulate the immune system in cancer patients. So our focus was engineering and making new viruses to fight cancer.
And so how did you then take that research to now apply it to COVID-19?
So at the beginning, we thought that we could explore the opportunity. And when we start reading and learning more about this virus, we really realized that we needed, if we really wanted to make a vaccine that could potentially protect, especially people like cancer patients or seniors that may need a boost and really stimulate the immune system. So we thought that the viruses that we work and that we have experience and we have been modifying them for cancer patients indeed are like building blocks of vaccines too. So many of these viruses have been used to make other vaccines. So why not to use that expertise and those tools to really build an array of different vaccines that for COVID-19 that we can test and hopefully manufacture here at the Ottawa Hospital.
I wonder if I could insert, if you will, a question that has been asked by a number of our guests and donors. How close are we globally to having a vaccine? So
we have to be real in this case, right? Like there are many, over 100 vaccines that are currently being developed all around the globe and being tested, and some, as we know, are advancing in clinical trials and being tested in patients. So reality is we have, many countries have different platforms and they are being tested. Now, when it will be available to every single person in the globe, I think we are far from knowing that. We need a lot of research around. So reality is hard to say when is the actual time. People tend to estimate that it's around 18 months or so from now, but we need to be cautious and realistic that science supports development and innovation. So we need to properly do the science around these vaccines and make sure that they are safe for all the populations and also that they are effective.
Right. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for that answer. That's an honest answer. And I know the question that so many of us are wondering, but appreciate your candor in that regard. I know, as I've shared Dr. Diallo's passion, you too have passions that you have put on hold to work some ridiculous hours around cooking and dancing and curling. And yeah. I know you too are probably missing your family out of town. And so I guess my question is, if everything goes well with your research, what are you most optimistic about seeing? What could that impact be on patients so that everyone can get back to their passions?
That is a great question. I think life has impacted all of us in different ways, but we are all impacted. And I think it has, I would love to go back to be honest, to be able to travel and visit my family. So as you probably everyone can tell, I'm not from here. I have an accent, so I'm from Argentina. And one of the things that I'm struggling the most is not knowing when I will be able to cross the borders and get to see family. So for me, probably that it will be the most important thing to do. I love dancing, I love cooking, but I think family and that is the most important thing. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, we're hoping for that as well. Maybe one final question, and I asked this of Dr. Diallo as well, and that's why Ottawa? What is it about Ottawa that means so much to you and that allows you to do this incredible research you're doing? So
to be honest, I fully agree with what Dr. Diallo shared with us. For me, is the innovation that is in Ottawa, is the resources, is the support too, right? Like we have an amazing team of colleagues and Dr. Bell, Dr. Diallo, Dr. Auer support my career. As you know, I'm an early investigator, but also it's the community. The community is here supporting us and throughout the events and so forth. I have met a lot of people here that are very supportive. And again, it's what we have. We have a unique research institute where we have facilities that are state of the art. We have a manufacturing facility that if we develop, for example, a vaccine, we can make it here in the hospital for Canadians. So I think, and that is through the support of the community. So I think it's an amazing and very, it's a place that invites you to be creative and to work hard, and is the support. Yes.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate your insight, and I echo the same thing I said to Dr. Diallo. Deeply appreciate the passion and enthusiasm with which you do your work, and appreciate all of the information that you're providing. Thank you. And so now I am delighted, thrilled to introduce our third researcher. Dr. Dean Ferguson is a senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital and also the director of our clinical epidemiology program. And of course, I would be remiss not to share his passions outside the lab. That's soccer, the football, but the real kind, soccer, having coached his 3 sons competitively for 20 years and a passion for live music. And I think it's just a reminder, our researchers you're all putting in these incredibly long hours, and you've got families and lives and hobbies and passions that are taking a back seat. And here's what's kept Dr. Ferguson and his colleagues so committed in this fight against COVID-19. Dr. Ferguson and his colleagues are contributing to the global effort to determine if blood plasma from people who have recovered from COVID-19 could be an effective treatment for actively infected patients. And incredibly, this therapy will soon be tested in patients at the Ottawa Hospital. Just incredible. So Dr. Dean Ferguson, I invite you to join us if we could to ask you the first of a number of questions. And again, just a reminder to unmute so that we can hear what you've got to say. Thank you. So with that, Dr. Ferguson, can you tell us a little bit more about the research you were doing before the pandemic?
Sure. Thanks, Jennifer. And just, if I may, just a huge thank you to the foundation and our community for stepping up to the plate and just helping us with research at the Ottawa Hospital and making a difference. And in my research and that of colleagues, it's just truly a special place. So the research that I was doing before COVID hit was concerned blood transfusion. So I was conducting large trials looking at improving the lives and outcomes of all patients that receive blood transfusions. So this work looks at when we should transfuse, the blood products that we should transfuse, and in treatments that can minimize bleeding and transfusion need during surgery, in the ICU, in cancer patients, etc. And most of the recent work of mine is looking at whether blood donor sex, whether male or female blood donations impact recipients. And so that research was allowed to continue during COVID. We've managed to pivot and be able to run that with minimal impact and actually no impact on clinical activities. So I was very fortunate in that circumstance.
Amazing. Can you further that thought, in fact? So what does that now look like? How have you pivoted?
Yeah, so it's sort of that working from home. it's our research staff, our data entry, our analysts, our nurses, all able to conduct checkups and data entry remotely. So through virtual health means and connections, and it's been an eye opener, and I just thank the wonderful staff for being able to transition and work from home.
Amazing. So yeah, so promising and so wonderful then that the team, the entire team, has been able to adjust in that regard. If everything were to continue in this regard, what are your hopes for the research that you're doing? What could that impact look like then for patients?
Well, hopefully, one, bringing convalescent plasma to the Ottawa Hospital. We're ready to go. We have it in stock. This trial is about 1,200 patients from about 25 sites in Canada and New York City. and hopefully will make a difference, and that we'll be able to show that convalescent plasma is an effective treatment, is safe, and you know, what's also important is to also demonstrate, ideally, that it's effective, but also demonstrate if it is ineffective, because
Right.
its uptake in usual care and is you know, you want to avoid that because it may be harmful and certainly resource intense. So, but hopefully it turns into a benefit for our patients here and in Canada and the rest of the world.
Look really forward to hearing progress on that. And perhaps you were selected to sit on the panel that reviews all of the COVID-19 research projects that the Ottawa Hospital had put forward. And so I'm wondering if there's any insight that you can share on some of those projects outside your own research. Are there things that you're seeing? Are there trends that are quite promising?
Oh, amazing. You know, to have a front seat to, you know, our hospital frontline workers, our researchers, our staff stepping up and submitting ideas to the portal. I think if I was not mistaken, by the end of April, there was, you know, close to 150 different ideas. And these ideas consisted of, you know, new diagnostics, new treatments, new ways to protect our frontline workers and patients, behaviors, so testing behaviors for folk not to touch their eyes, nose, and mouth to prevent transmission. The spectrum was just incredibly wonderful to see, and that again the community steps up, the foundation steps up and funds you know, 2021 projects that make a difference not just here but around the world. It's truly special.
How wonderful. It's been incredible. I would echo that, to see just how many ideas are coming from our dedicated team to make this better, and then in turn that community support has provided the fuel to allow these projects to move forward. It's all incredible. And perhaps I could end with just one more question, and then I'd like to move on. Dr. Ferguson, again, I just have to ask around Ottawa. What is it in Ottawa that you feel leaves you so bullish about our future?
Oh, it's just you know, as JS and Karolina had mentioned, it's people, it's the leadership, it's the supports. It is, you know, I've been doing this for a while now, and you know, pleased to call Ottawa and the Ottawa Hospital home, and I can attest that it's second to none in the country, and the proof is in the pudding. Our grant dollars, the research productivity at the Ottawa Hospital is right up there with the bigger partners. It's just phenomenal to see, and again, just the community proud to call it home.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Dr. Ferguson, Dr. L Cow, and Dr. Diallo, and of course Dr. Stewart as well, for this incredible information and insight. I think we hear a lot on the news, but what you're providing is that inside look about precisely what's happening behind the scenes. And as I said at the top, the hope is that you will leave informed and inspired and awfully proud to call Ottawa home. And so I know goodness that I'm feeling all of those things in listening to you speak. And so as promised, I do want to make sure that we have allowed enough time for our guests to ask some of the questions that they've got. And so I wonder, Dr. Diallo, if I could direct the first question to you, if I may. And it's this: is the COVID-19 virus ever evolving? And if so, how the heck can we keep up with it? And I'm quoting there.
Well, you know, that's a good question. It's a very important question because it certainly impacts everything relating to vaccines and therapeutics that we're all developing here. And the reality is, you know, the virus is mutating. You know, I've seen some data that's not quite published yet that suggests that, you know, for every 1,000 person infected, there's about one slight mutation that arises. So there's quite a few strains circulating around the world right now, And of course, the more people get infected, the more that problem increases. And so that's why I think, as much as it's been terrible on everybody, the social distance prevention is the best medicine. Social distancing and preventing those cases from going up, increases our chances that we'll have fewer mutants to deal with in the future, because that just remains a absolute possibility that new mutants might arise.
And so in terms of sharing information like that, thank you so much for that answer. I gather this is a journey now that we will continue to look to the Ottawa Hospital to be a leader and share these innovations and share some of that advice that needs to be provided. So thank you so much for that answer. Really appreciate that. I wonder if I could look to Dr. L Cow for our next question that did actually just come from a guest a few moments ago. I think it's a great one. Dr. L Cow, how can we balance the need for a safe COVID-19 vaccine with the need to develop it so quickly?
That is a very important question, and indeed, I think it has to be balanced. And the point is, we know that a lot of vaccines had been developed very quickly in months, right? Like when generally it takes years and years. And that being said, most of the vaccines are very similar in terms of what part of the COVID-19 virus had been taken up to build these vaccines. So they look all very similar, even though the package of the vaccine is different. But reality is, to the point is, we need to act quickly but also safely. So by saying so, we need to do the science behind that supports and validates all the preclinical information that vaccine is safety. So we need to test it properly before we get into people. So I think we need to be cautious moving forward.
There's no doubt. Thank you for that. And we would expect nothing less, but I think helpful to know, right, that there is this urgency around COVID-19. Everyone is anxious for that vaccine, but to know that all of those precautions are being taken. So thank you for that. I wonder if I could actually direct the next question that came from one of our guests who RSVP'd to Dr. Stewart, in fact. And it's actually a little bit less about COVID-19 in the sense that the question is, to what extent has the rest of the research undertaken by the Ottawa Hospital been affected by this pivot to COVID-19 research?
Thank you, Jennifer. That again is a critical question. As you may know, and as folks in the community may know, we've had to pause most of the research, the normal research that we do at the Institute. So it's not so much that COVID's taken away the research, it's provided us an opportunity to rechannel and redeploy some of the, as you heard today, some of the exciting research that we're doing towards COVID-19. But even though we're not able to get into the labs and do bench work and such, there's a lot that can be done in terms of analyzing data we already have, in terms of virtual research, in terms of preparing and finalizing the manuscripts. All that takes time. So I think researchers have been able to use that time to catch up, if you will, with some of that. And now we are phasing in the research. So we're beginning in phase 1 gradually to start doing research. So we're beginning now to initiate other research projects. So I think the overall impact, although it's significant, I think it has not. I don't think it's had a major negative impact on the operations overall.
Thank you so much for that answer. I know that's comforting, if you will, in some regards. I know that we've got a community here that has rallied around research for many years, is very proud of the caliber of research that comes out of Ottawa, and recognizes that we need to pause and pivot, as we've used that word quite a bit, but probably comforted to know that we have not halted in that regard. So thank you for that. Dr. Ferguson, could I direct the next question to you again from one of our guests that says, are there currently any proven treatments for COVID-19 right now?
Yeah, so as we went to bed last night, no, but we wake up today to the news from from the United Kingdom that the results of a very large clinical trial in about 6,500 patients have demonstrated that a very low dose steroid, dexamethasone, was actually effective in reducing mortality in seriously ill patients with COVID, which is a good sign. I think you know, it's the closest thing we have to proven, and I expect this to become a standard of care throughout the world. The neat thing about it is that dexamethasone is a very available, it's inexpensive, and again available not just in high-income countries but low-income countries as well. So that's exciting news, and that's the first, I'll say, proven treatment.
My goodness. Well, you always hope that we can provide some inside information, and I think that's precisely what you just did, which was to let us in on what's happening in real time, and I'm sure it's changing every hour, every day. So thank you for that insight. Dr. Diallo, I wonder if I could look to you for this next question from one of our guests, and it says, this is an interesting one. Does Canada have the manufacturing capacity to produce enough COVID-19 vaccine for the entire population, I gather, of Canada?
Well, that's an excellent question. I mean, the manufacturing problem is astronomical in this crisis. And, you know, unfortunately, I mean, we're actually very fortunate. Ottawa is probably the Ottawa Hospital is probably one of the only or one of the first research centers that have actually put in place a manufacturing facility for viruses. And that's built on the fact that we've been trying to make cancer-fighting viruses for so long. And, you know, there's some manufacturing capacity slowly starting to emerge in other places in Canada, for example, in Alberta. And, you know, the NRC is starting to invest in that and starting to develop that. But it's not a lot, and it's coming in pretty late into the game. The reality is we're going to be struggling to manufacture a vaccine for the whole population, should that that come. And you know, the reality is right now we're somewhat dependent on, you know, external provision, right? So that's a little bit of a precarious situation to be in, and I think that we really need to invest more in manufacturing capacity overall, as well as in novel technologies to improve manufacturing, which is one area of the research that we do as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm not sure that we all are well aware, frankly, of the expertise that we do have in that area. So excellent answer, and thank you for sharing that. It continues to be something we'll need to watch so closely. I did, just by way of housekeeping, want to remind guests that they can submit their questions on that sidebar. I've got one that I've just received now that I'm going to ask, but please feel free, because our team is clearly enjoying the opportunity to answer these. This question I'm going to direct to Dr. Stewart, and as I say, it just arrived a couple of moments ago. Is there a good test to tell if someone has previously been infected by COVID-19 as opposed to someone who is actively infected? When do you think this kind of test might be available in Ottawa?
So this would be the serology test. So the COVID-19 test that you hear about a lot is a test that looks for the virus and identifies the nucleic acid material of the virus. But that only tells you if you've been infected. So to know if you are infected, to know if you have been infected in the past, you need to look at the antibodies your body has produced. So if you can detect antibodies that are directed towards COVID, then that provides evidence that you actually had an infection that may now be cleared. So there's no evidence of the infection of the virus anymore. This is emerging, but it's tricky. Because different antibodies are produced, and how specific they are and sensitive they are is in debate right now. So a number of serology tests are available, and a lot of clinical trials, clinical research is being done to evaluate these tests. But but they're still not perfect, and they work best in populations that have had a high level exposure, and then that reduces the false positive rate. And they don't work well in populations like Ottawa that have had a low level exposure.
Okay, so yes, still much I imagine to come in that realm, but certainly a question that's coming up a fair amount. Dr. L Cow, I do have another question for you that, again, I would say in speaking with so many of our donors continues to come up quite a bit. And again, I always say our donors are always asking these thought-provoking questions because they are investing in the future and what this looks like as well. And this is a vaccine question. And so if a vaccine is created, is it more likely that it will be a flu-like vaccine that would be administered seasonally, or will it be a one-time vaccine with occasional boosters?
So again, a very important, really good question. So we hope that indeed it's not like the seasonal vaccine for that every year we need a different vaccine for this virus. So this virus, as Dr. Diallo was educating us, is mutating, is changing a little, but the mutations or the changes that the virus is accumulating are not as drastic as the flu. So because of that, we hope that by making vaccines that are broader, so that means it builds all these antibodies that Dr. Stewart was telling us against multiple parts of the virus with a single vaccine type, we may be able to vaccinate people and the immunity will last. But to the point of the booster, that is something that we need to learn, because this is a new virus, right? So we don't know how our body, our immune system builds in a fight against this virus. So immunity may decay. So our antibodies may decay over time. So we may need boosters, but maybe it's a similar vaccine that we boost with people. And it's not a totally different vaccine like the flu that we use every year, it changes. So it may be a mix in between, but we need to learn. It's too soon to really know what it will work.
These really are the million-dollar questions. You're making me realize that we almost need to do this session, gosh, I don't want to overcommit here, but regularly, because there will be so much changing and so many new answers as you find out what we're learning in this realm. So an honest answer yet again, and still much to find out in that regard. Dr. Ferguson, I wonder if I could ask you a question. Again, just received this a moment ago from someone viewing here. If plasma from recovered COVID-19 patients is able to give immunity to others, do we have any idea how long that immunity would last?
Yeah, so the short answer is no, we don't. That's part of the clinical trial. We'll also be testing that. Ideally, the convalescent plasma helps boost your own immune system to respond as well and develop, obviously, your own antibodies to the virus and to get over the difficult period of serious or moderate and serious disease and implications from that disease. And so, yeah, that is part of the trial we'll be testing because we don't know. It's still too soon.
Okay, so yeah, sometimes we're not going to get all the answers that we want in that regard, but good questions nonetheless. Dr. Diallo, I'll look to you for this next one. If you find a drug that can block COVID-19, would it be given to everyone or only people who are sick with the virus right now?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I suppose it kind of depends on the way that the drug works. And if we take the example of what we're trying to discover drugs that block the entry of the virus into the cells. So technically speaking, that could be given ahead of an infection, so before somebody gets infected. I don't know that I would go as far as to say that everybody would get it, but for example, frontline workers may benefit from that. presuming, of course, that the safety profile of the drug is sufficient to allow for that. But it's obviously it's meant to be used for people that are infected. That's really the hope, because we know those people are at high risk, and these are the people that should get those drugs. But because of the specific mechanism by which we're hoping to develop antivirals, they could be foreseeably used ahead of an infection.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that. That's great. Thank you for that intel. Dr. Stewart, I wonder, this is an interesting question. Not everyone may know, although I hope they know, that we have incredible expertise in regenerative medicine and stem cells, home to the Sinclair Center for Regenerative Medicine and the Sprott Center for Stem Cell Research. The question here is, because the Ottawa Hospital is such a leader in stem cell research, is it possible that stem cells could help in the fight against COVID-19?
So how long do I have to answer this question, Jennifer? Half an hour? No, that's a great question. As you know, we've been on the forefront of using stem cells, not for their stem-like capacity, because some of these stem cells can modify the immune system, immune response, and reduce the damaging inflammation and increase the healing aspects of that. And this fits very well in what we understand is happening in COVID-19, where the virus gets in the lung, it causes pneumonia, and it's still not clear exactly all the mechanisms, but clearly the host response to that and the hyperactivation of the immune system is really part of the problem, causing damage to the lung and to the blood vessels in the lung. And that's why a certain number of patients, 15 or 20%, get really sick, need ventilation, and these patients have a very high mortality. So there's very good evidence from our group and elsewhere in the world that for similar conditions, these immunomodulatory stem cells can greatly decrease the inflammation, the damage. Now, hearing about the new study showing that steroids could be effective, this actually suggests that really this targeting the immune response is a really important strategy. And this may be the smart steroids that can actually do this in a way that really gets at the root of the problem without causing other effects. So we'll see, and we are starting a stem cell trial, and as you know, quite an ambitious one, and Dean Ferguson has been a major player in this and getting it going. So we hope to be initiating this in the very near future. The main problem we have right now is that we don't have patients, because right now there are no patients on ventilators in the Ottawa Hospital at this point. But we do know that this isn't over. I think it's going to be with us for a while, and unfortunately likely to be another wave either in Ottawa or in surrounding areas, and this is a multi-center trial involving Montreal and Toronto. So I think we'll have an opportunity to test this therapy.
Amazing. You know what's remarkable to me is that not every hospital or research institute would have the ability to ask that question. Are stem cells even an option? This is why I loved your answers at the start about why Ottawa, because that notion of collaboration and that notion of a multidisciplinary approach is just so invaluable. So I love that our donors, that our supporters can ask questions like that. Could we try this on for size, and might it make a difference? And so just wonderful to hear that. There are still some questions coming, so we're going to keep powering through. This is incredible. Dr. L Cow, a question for you. If someone has recovered from COVID-19, does that mean they are immune to being infected again? An incredible question, to be sure. Oh, just have to unmute there.
Yeah, I got it. No, again, it's an amazing question. And reality is, we think, and based on the data, but not with people yet, but at least with preclinical data from animals that we test the virus, that we know that the animals can be protected after infection for a while, but we don't know that with people, because reality is this is a new virus. we just had the first wave, people got infected. Good news is our immune system reacts very well against the virus. So it builds all these antibodies and all these defenses to indeed combat and fight the virus. Now, we don't know for how long it lasts. So people may be protected for 3 months, a year, or maybe 10 years, and then the immunity may decay. So all this information, I think, as the time passes, we will learn more about what happened with our immune system, and if we have methods to measure these antibodies and our immune defenses against the virus, we will know when they decay. But what we know is that at least for a short period of time, we are protected against.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you. That is yet another $1 million question if we could figure out the answer to that. Dr. Ferguson, I'm going to go back to you if I could with a question I just received too. Do we have any good models to show how many COVID-19 cases and deaths we may have had in Ottawa if we didn't do widespread physical distancing?
Yeah, so actually our scientist leaders, Dr. Doug Manuel and his team, were front and center with Ottawa Public Health and the province and actually the country in developing models based on what was happening early on, as well as what was predicted. And there's no question that Ottawa and Eastern Ontario rose to the challenge and predicted and prevented, I should say, much less cases, much less mortality. We just have to look to the south of us, especially in New York City, to see what would have happened. And that would have been reality here, without a question. And so those models, if you sort of reverse engineer, have shown that we were probably 70–80% effective in the physical distancing measures that prevented the mass influx within our hospitals and most importantly also to our frontline workers and so forth. So we can certainly pat ourselves in the back. I mean, I was just chatting with a colleague in a big city in Brazil, and they have a similar size hospital, about 1,200 beds, and all 1,200 patients are COVID patients. It's that dramatic. So again, we can be very proud, and we wouldn't be thinking about coming out of this if we didn't take those measures.
Thank you for that. So again, helpful to think about what could have been and that sense of pride, if you will, in terms of how Ottawa has risen to the challenge. I've got 2 more questions. I think we've got time for 2 more. So Dr. Diallo, this question for you. I don't know if you know the answer to this. Are there lifelong consequences to being infected with COVID-19?
I think I really don't know the answer to that question. The only thing I can tell you is sort of anecdotal. I was talking with a colleague of mine whose cousin was infected and recovered, and this was a perfectly healthy person. And basically for months after having recovered, still can't breathe properly. So it seems that this inflammation that is causing a lot of pathology also leads to scarring, which can take a long time to recover from. And so, the longer term issues, that it's too early to know. I mean, the crisis just really started for us in January, so it's impossible to tell.
Right. Thank you for that. Again, an honest answer. And perhaps I'll look to Dr. L Cow for the final question, if I could. And the reason for that is it's about, it's live, it's from one of our guests, and it's around cancer. So I would say a number of our guests continue to still ask questions with illnesses they may be fighting. And so the question is this: has your research on COVID-19 taught you anything that will help with your research on cancer-fighting viruses and in your ongoing work?
Yes, and we are very excited about the new things that we learned over the past 3 months. I think by making these vaccines, we are working in the interface. So we work on the virus, we work on the vaccine field, and we are learning a lot. And there are a lot of concepts from the vaccine, from the infectious disease vaccine field that indeed we are learning, and we are excited, and we are very excited to start implementing those concepts into the development of cancer vaccines. So yes, we learn a lot, and if there is a positive around this terrible situation, is that we learn to work together in a much better way. We learn a lot of new things that hopefully we will be able to implement and in our regular research projects, like making better cancer fighting viruses. So yes, the answer is yes, and it's a positive one.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I think we want to be very respectful, of course, of everybody's time. And so with that, I think we will conclude the question and answer period. I want to send a sincere thank you to Dr. Diallo, Dr. Stewart, Dr. L Cow, and Dr. Ferguson for your thoughtful, honest answers, for the work that you do every day on behalf of our community, for sharing with us so honestly what the near future holds and maybe what might happen in weeks, months, who knows how long from now. But what you've done is be very honest with us about what's going on right now with this virus that we've all got so many questions about. We wanted to take this time to share with our supporters and citizens in the community who are just concerned what's happening. And I think that you are giving us so much reason to be proud to call Ottawa home. I want to say merci à tous d'avoir participé à cette réunion aujourd'hui. I am so grateful that you've taken this time. You are reminding me that we do have so much information as well to share on our foundation website, and so much that this is a journey. And so with that, Tim, I'd like to reintroduce you if I could and turn things over to Tim Kluk, our foundation CEO, and allow you to send some closing remarks. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. And, you know, just to echo what Jennifer said, thank you to our researchers, Dr. Diallo, Dr. Stewart, Dr. Ferguson, Dr. L Cow. It's been really a remarkable, informative session. So thank you so much. And I think what's important for our guests to understand this afternoon is this research is possible thanks to community support. Dean Ferguson mentioned it earlier, the OHRI being able to put donations to work. You know, the donations made, the Ottawa Hospital's COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund helped our researchers move quickly, immediately, as you heard, to pivot and to hit the pandemic head on. The COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund remains active, but we also know that the business of the hospital and the Research Institute continue. And we're also accepting donations to support all programs and research platforms. As we've heard through this session this afternoon, it's base facilities of our Research Institute, like our virus manufacturing facility, that allowed the Ottawa Hospital to play the leadership role that we have here in the last few months. Of course, another priority of ours is to continue to raise funds to support the redevelopment of the new Carling campus. As an uncertain future remains, it's relieving to know for all of us that the Ottawa Hospital is here for you, for your family, and I think these last few months have really underscored the important role the Ottawa Hospital plays in our community. In closing, I want to thank you for your support, your interest. We're grateful for that support, and we never take it for granted. This brings our program to a close. Thank you for joining us in our inaugural virtual event. This has been fantastic and so informative. So please stay safe and stay healthy. Have a great evening. Thank you so much.